What is up, fellas, and welcome to another episode of Rewriting History with me, the Goob. Today, I'm going to be presenting an article I wrote about NAGPRA and giving some commentary. But before I even get into that, I want to just give a brief overview of how I got introduced to this topic and some of a little history about it. Because very few people are aware of what's going on with NAGPRA and the threat it poses to history and how actively history is being erased. And in fact, I had no idea about it. I was aware of NAGPRA, but I learned of this new update and how it's been totally radicalized purely by incident. I made a phone call to the Ohio History Connection about a completely different topic. And while I had him on the line, I asked him, hey, I'm trying to learn about Native American history. I'm trying to see their artifacts, and I've been unable to find almost anything online at all. Can you recommend a good internet repository for me to study? And the response I got was, yeah, no, you're not going to find anything like that due to the federal regulations. And so that's what set me down this path, is hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, hearing it from the Ohio History Connection, one of the largest Native American archaeological departments in America, that, yeah, all of that is gone. There are no more images online of Native American artifacts, and that's all due to NAGPRA. And NAGPRA does far more than just make it illegal to show images of Native American artifacts online. It has completely erased Native American history from the public view. Museums across the country have shut down, and far more is happening behind the scenes in secret. The entire one of the core tenets of this is secrecy. This is all happening without any reporting, not only from journalists, but from the archaeological institutions themselves. They are erasing and destroying Native American history, and there's no report being made of this. A key component is respecting the Native Americans, and part of that respect is by not publicizing any of this information. So it took me months of studying NAGPRA to understand the extent of it and to actually accept the extent of it, because what I'm going to cover in this article is pretty radical. It's a huge departure from how things have operated in the past and how people believe these things are still operating. So I understand there's a lot of hesitancy to believe what I'm saying. It is very radical, but hopefully this article can help clear that up a little bit. Let me go ahead and pull it up on the screen here. And let me go ahead and start reading it. I'm going to read through it and give some commentary. And then I'll, if you guys have commentary, leave it in the comments and we'll discuss it at the end. So NAGPRA's assault on history, archaeology's betrayal, and the fight to save our past. The Native American Graves and Protection Repatriation Act, NAGPRA, enacted in 1990, was meant to address a dark legacy of disrespect toward Native American remains and cultural items. And there really were some dark things that were happening in America's past. To my knowledge, that's just not happening anymore. All of these tragedies that the natives faced under archaeologists, they were real. They're not real anymore. Its 2024 reinterpretation has turned into a weapon, obliterating public access to Native American history, strangling archaeological inquiry, and enabling a radicalized field to rewrite the past unchecked. This crisis, driven by an unhinged archaeological culture and federal overreach, demands urgent action, outlined at the end, to save humanity's heritage from extinction. NAGPRA's betrayal, from compromise to erasure. Signed on November 16, 1990, NAGPRA sought to rectify a dark legacy, Native American remains and burial goods displayed in museums, often leaving descendants to confront their ancestors' graves in cases. There are some cases where people walked into museums and would legitimately see their family members or their grave items on display. That's a bit gruesome. There's also examples of bodies literally being stolen. So again, there were dark things that were happening. They're not happening anymore. Senators John McCain and Daniel Inouye framed it as a balance between scientific study and respect for native rights, requiring federally funded institutions to inventory and repatriate human remains, funerary objects, sacred objects, and objects of cultural patrimony to tribes and Native Hawaiian organizations. These terms right here have very specific legal definitions. Those legal definitions have massively been expanded under the most recent update. So that now includes everything, and that'll be covered later in the article. This balance was obliterated on January 12th, 2024, when Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland, a Laguna Pueblo member and Native American activist, unleashed a radical reinterpretation. Haaland and the Department of Interior view archaeology itself as theft, a moral wrong that victimizes Native Americans, and their rules reflect this attitude top to bottom. The DOI rejected NAGPRA's dual purpose, insisting repatriation is its sole aim, dismissing science entirely. And there's actually a quote from the Department of Interior stating that very directly, that their interpretation of this law is that there is no intended balance to science, that the purpose of this law is strictly for the purpose of repatriation, and that science is not even a factor in these decisions. Haaland demands that every object, even those thousands of years removed from living cultures, be assigned to a modern tribe for repatriation within 5 years, regardless of historical ties, or even if the assigned tribe's ancestors conquered, enslaved, or eradicated the original culture. Of 281 public comments on the update, only 2 criticized its impact on archaeology's principles or public good. The rest either supported it or demanded it go further, decrying archaeology as an injustice. This extremist vision, backed by a fanatical archaeological community, has turned NAGPRA into a tool for historical erasure. So, in the original interpretation, the objects, the remains, they would be, if they were directly associated with a federally recognized tribe, then that tribe gained control over them. Under the new reinterpretations, every single Native American object, artifact, remains, anything and everything, literal human shit, human hair, garbage, animals, scraps and bones, anything and everything now falls under NAGPRA. And this includes tribes that have been extinct for thousands of years, that have absolutely no connection to the modern day tribes. It also includes the hundreds of tribes that are still in existence, but aren't federally recognized. They legally do not exist according to NAGPRA, and they have no rights to their own artifacts. These other tribes have the right to their artifacts. And on the public comments, there were several comments that criticized NAGPRA for its financial failings. The increase in cost to these museums and institutions is astronomical. They were already struggling before this update, and this is a significant reason why so many museums have closed permanently. Not only did every single museum have to legally shut down its Native American exhibits on January 12, 2024, but many museums have permanently closed since then because they simply can't afford the financial burden. But besides the financial criticisms, there was a total of 2 comments out of almost 300 that said, hey, this law is overstepping, this law is going too far, we need to reel it in. Overwhelmingly, the comments were demanding that this law go even further. I don't know how you go even further, but they were demanding it go even further. A law gone mad. Everything is untouchable. The 2024 revisions apply NAGPRA to any entity, museums, universities, state agencies, businesses, literally everything that ever received federal funds. Post-COVID, that's everyone. The rules were so ludicrously broad that they could have ensnared anyone with a pre-2024 museum photo on social media, forcing an emergency addendum to exempt individuals. That's right. They made this update so broad that it even would have applied to individuals. So if you had a picture of a museum display from January 11th and you posted that on Facebook, you would have been in violation of NAGPRA before they added that emergency addendum to specify that it doesn't apply to individuals. But every private business, every public business, every single entity in the United States, except for the Smithsonian Museum, they have their own little carve out, is subject to NAGPRA. NAGPRA now covers human remains, funerary objects, and sacred objects or cultural patrimony, with sacred loosely defined. There is a strict legal definition, but you can listen to commentary from archaeologists, and they have completely thrown that definition out, and they are now using it to broadly define literally everything. This Pocahontas narrative of these spiritual natives where everything is imbued with spirits. Every single object is imbued with spirits and ritualness, and everything is sacred. So literally anything any Native American ever touched is now sacred and falls under NAGPRA. This invites absurdity, as seen in cases where Native groups demanded repatriation of fossilized human waste. Elizabeth Weiss, wrote a great article in Minding the Campus. There's a typo there, 2024. And ancient refuse, literal garbage, deemed sacred. If excrement and trash qualify, anything can. Archaeologists amplify this by embracing a romanticized narrative like the Pocahontas trope of spirits in the wind, where every native touched object is sacred, like I was just saying. The DOI's commentary explicitly pushes for the broadest interpretation, and archaeologists, fueled by their radical culture, demand even more extreme applications. Again, the overwhelming comments on this bill were that it needed to be more, even broader and more restrictive. This has obliterated public access. Every museum across America with a Native American display was forced to close or cover exhibits on January 12, 2024, as they became illegal without tribal consent. Some, like the San Bernardino County Museum, remain shuttered indefinitely, unable to afford consultation, while others, like the Native American-focused Huhugam Heritage Center in Arizona, have not reopened. Their entire purpose gutted by NAGPRA's demands. The ban extends to images, replicas, and artistic representation, erasing tens of thousands of photos from online databases. A self-initiated NAGPRA audit at a major university reveals the insanity. Auditors didn't just target the archaeology department, but ransacked every corner of the campus. Art, history, even engineering departments, hunting for any scrap of Native American related information, down to paintings in faculty offices, as a single visible depiction could violate federal law. This isn't compliance, it's a systematic purge of Native American history driven by the DOI's radical agenda and archaeology's complicity. So some of the pushback that I get on NAGPRA is that everything I just read there is not actually written into the law of NAGPRA. It's very deliberately written as broadly as possible. I've compared this to YouTube's guidelines before, right? YouTube doesn't give you a list of words that you're not allowed to say. They leave it very broad so that they can enforce what they want when they want. And that is exactly how this NAGPRA update was created. There's nothing in there saying that photos can't be displayed explicitly, but it was written so broadly that it could apply to photos. It could apply to literally any scrap of information on Native Americans whatsoever. And so every single one of the largest archaeology universities, museums, any archaeological department entity, right, in the United States, all of the biggest ones have all implemented policies that are doing exactly this: removing photos, removing replicas, removing artistic depictions, even removing books from their shelves. Classrooms have archaeology classrooms are not allowed to use the books that they were using in the past years. They have to remove all of the images from all of the books for archaeology classrooms. I really cannot stress just how insane they're going with all of this, and almost no one is aware that any of this is happening. The extreme culture of American archaeology, a field devouring itself. American archaeology is imploding under a fanatical ideology where dissent is dead. Over 99% of archaeologists lean left. I'm going to read that again. Over 99% of archaeologists lean left, at least in America, creating a suffocating echo chamber where rare descent is crushed by rabid conformity. This extreme culture views archaeology as evil, a colonial crime to be dismantled. Without pushback, the field's descent into madness shows no signs of slowing. Many archaeologists don't seek truth, but status, clinging to groupthink like a cult, savaging anyone who challenges their canon. They claim to save archaeology, but their actions erase evidence, leaving history as whatever they decree. This is, again, a problem that gets very little reporting and is very little understood because archaeology is pretty secluded. Archaeologists are typically loners. They don't interact with the public a ton. You do have a very small handful of archaeologists that are active on Twitter and stuff, and we all know them and how terrible they are. But your average archaeologist is pretty reclusive. And so all of this is happening within their echo chamber, and it really doesn't leak out much. But you have to understand what over 99% left-leaning creates, because colonialism is bad. What's archaeology? It's colonialism. So it just gets more and more and more extreme. There's no one to push back against the madness, and they can only play their social positioning games. Oh, I'm more woke than you, and just keep pushing it further and further and further. And it's spiraled completely out of control to where archaeologists are very actively fighting. They've made it their mission to destroy and erase archaeology. I realize that's an incredibly divisive and extreme statement to make, but it's absolutely true. I'm not even being hyperbolic here. Archaeologists have gone mad. This culture cheers NAGPRA's overreach. Elizabeth Weiss recounts a ceremony where X-rays and research records were burned after remains were reburied, erasing scientific data forever. That is right. It's not just the removal of these things from the public eye. It's not just Native Americans having absolute control over what digs happen, ability to shut down digs after they've started, ability to, dictate whether or not anything is published on the dig, but it is also very literally destroying and erasing research. They set the X-rays on fire, they doused them in gasoline, and they burnt them physically. A pre-2024 YouTube video, Science Division pop-up NAGPRA overview and status captures this zeal. An archaeologist boasts about eagerly facilitating tribal demands like returning modern mask recreations sold as art without hesitation. He stresses it's not his role to question Native requests, only to obey. This was before the 2024 update. Now this mindset is legally mandated for all archaeologists. That video really is pretty crazy. It's pretty boring for most people, but there's multiple people in there. They talk about their reasons for getting into archaeology. Not a single one of them wanted to get into archaeology to learn the past of humanity. Every single one listed a reason, like, I'm a Native American and I'm a Native American activist fighting for rights. And so I want to fight for, I want to make sure that we control our history. It provides a valuable insight into this closed off system that people don't usually get a look into. But it is long, it is dense, it is pretty boring. But if you listen closely, you'll hear them say just some absolutely insane things, like those masks. The masks were created for a museum by a Native American artist and sold to the museum. And then decades later, a tribal member goes, hey, these are all sacred. You can't have these. You have to return these now. The museum not only doesn't get paid for returning those masks, they have to pay for the return of those masks. It's not a cheap and easy thing because of NAGPRA, they can't just send it back. There's a whole lot of paperwork and cataloging and a lot of things that go into this process, making it very difficult and expensive. And like he said, he proudly returns those masks without question. And he asked them, is there anything else I can do for you? What else can we erase for you? Archaeologists' work, findings hidden, interpretations warped. That's kind of a strangely worded there. Archaeology continues. Excavations unearth real artifacts, but the public sees nothing unless tribes approve. And what emerges is filtered through a politicized lens. Archaeologists steeped in radical ideology interpret finds to fit a worldview that prioritizes activism over evidence. Interpretation, inherently subjective, relies on piecing together artifacts and sites to reconstruct the past. With so much still unknown, it's easy to spin theories, but the field's ideological uniformity ensures that these are rarely challenged. Most archaeologists lack the courage to question the dominant framework, instead shoehorning discoveries into flawed, politicized narratives. Peer review meant to catch errors fails when groupthink rules, as it does in archaeology's echo chamber. And, this problem has been present for a long time, but now with how radicalized archaeologists have become in their echo chamber, with us increasingly seeing things like make no bones about it. Sex is not binary. The science is settled, with stating that the first indigenous people of every European country were Black. This total departure from all reality. We've left the world where they are warping things, and now they're just straight up erasing and rewriting things. The problem truly is very severe, and the momentum is gaining in their favor, right? This insanity isn't slowing down. There's no pushback on this. I'm pretty much the only person besides Elizabeth Weiss who is actively, trying to speak out about this and stop this. And my voice matters very little because I'm not in archaeology like she is. But no one's aware of this. No one's pushing back against this. So it's getting worse, and it's accelerating in it getting worse. New finds aren't hidden, but twisted to serve ideological ends. New finds are hidden, if the Native Americans decide that they should be, right? That's really what it comes down to. I was trying to be sort of fair here and objective here, right? Archaeologists are still able to work. Their ability to work is limited, but digs are still happening. They are still able to publish on them. But again, it's solely at the discretion of the Native Americans what's said, if they say anything at all. So new finds are hidden, but I was trying to express that this hasn't completely put a stop to archaeology in America. Unchallenged by a field that punishes dissent. Ideally, discoveries would be examined from multiple angles to understand their context before integrating them into broader histories. Instead, archaeologists force-fit them into preconceived, often ahistorical visions, accepted because conformity trumps insight. This, alongside NAGPRA's restrictions, ensure that the public gets a sanitized, tribal-approved version of history, if anything at all. While NAGPRA doesn't halt excavations, its chokehold on access and interpretation will inevitably shrink archaeological work, as funding and motivation dry up in a field where discoveries can't be shared or studied freely. That's right. If these, it doesn't matter if archaeologists are still able to do their work, if they're not able to share their findings and the public isn't allowed to know about them, and eventually they won't be able to do their work because without public interest, they won't get any funding. Elizabeth Weiss, archaeology's lone warrior. Elizabeth Weiss, a tenured archaeologist at San Jose State University, is the only active scholar daring to fight NAGPRA's madness. Likened to Jordan Peterson, mostly by me, Weiss faces vicious backlash for defending science. Leading up to her university's attempts to oust her, despite tenure, her dean delivered a presentation, What to Do When a Tenured Professor is Branded a Racist, where he agreed with the label and admitted if she wasn't tenured, we wouldn't be having this discussion because she'd already be gone. While plotting ways to remove her, in a grotesque irony, the university banned Weiss from her own research collection, which she was the curator of, claiming menstruating people were unclean for handling native remains, changing the locks. They physically changed the locks to bar her from her own curation facility. A woke institution banning a woman in the name of cultural sensitivity. Weiss's story exposes archaeology's rot. Through 2 books, countless articles, and interviews, she battles on a vital voice against field's self-destruction. I've compared Weiss to Jordan Peterson several times, and I think she really failed to capitalize on her own story. Unlike Jordan, she didn't go. She's done many interviews, but she really focuses more on the issues than what she personally dealt with. And I think she could have got a lot more attention by focusing on herself, because what she went through truly is crazy. This is such a small sample of what she experienced, the insanity that she faced. It was truly disgusting. The way her peers attacked her is awful. In this presentation, What to Do When a Tenured Professor is Branded a Racist, there was a Q&A section, and her dean was asked a question. I forget the question specifically, but he recounts how he had a meeting with her, and in the meeting, Weiss got emotional because they were trying to destroy her life, and they're coming at her and calling her racist and Satan and all of these horrible things. And he remarks about how he had to remind himself that she was a human being, that she wasn't, Satan incarnate, and that she wasn't just this purely evil force, that she was actually a human being that, was doing what she thought was right, which is standing with truth. It really is a crazy. The full transcript is shocking and disgusting. The way they treated her, the way they viewed her, the way they talked about her openly in public. It really, I feel very bad for what Weiss had to go through. I can't imagine how horrible that experience was. And look into her story. If you thought Jordan Peterson was a good story, look into her story. It's well worth learning about. How she was treated was absolutely disgusting. Beyond NAGPRA, and she was treated that way, again, just for standing up for truth. She didn't do anything wrong. She just stated the truth. Beyond NAGPRA, a systemic plague. NAGPRA is one head of a hydra infecting society from individuals to the White House. In 2016, President Obama issued an executive order to rebury Kennewick Man, a 9,000-year-old skeleton key to human migration, despite no relation to modern tribes, shutting down all scientific study forever. The remains were buried in a secret location under 10 tons of gravel, an absurd act to ensure no future access. Under NAGPRA's 2024 update, Kennewick Man would now fall under its rules assigned to a tribe regardless of evidence. In 2021, President Biden directed federal employees to defer to Native American opinions in disputes, even on climate change, a $1 trillion field tied to human survival, and urged private scientists, especially in climate research, to do the same. That the world's most powerful leader demands scientists prioritize indigenous feelings over evidence, particularly on existential issues, reveals a systemic rot. From NAGPRA to presidential decrees, ideology trumps truth at every level. And on the Kennewick Man, there's supposedly they found a relative to him, or maybe I'm getting him mixed up with one of the other ancient remains. But there are several reports on the DNA of Kennewick Man, and they're all contradictory to each other. This is an example of NAGPRA and the suppression of this information. It's so highly politicized. It's so controversial that even presenting hard factual DNA evidence gets obscured and gets misrepresented and gets warped and just straight up lied about. It really is a tragedy. The letter that Biden wrote, it specified climate change specifically multiple times, that federal employees and citizen scientists needed to defer to Native American wisdom on climate change, but it was a broad recommendation that on any issue, Native American wisdom should be deferred to. And this was an order for federal employees and a recommendation for private citizens. That letter has since been removed from the White House website, but it did happen. You can still find some references to it online. Legal travesty, a First Amendment violation. NAGPRA's 2024 revisions are legally obscene, requiring scientists to defer to tribal opinions, even against evidence. It violates the First Amendment mandating adherence to Native American beliefs. If a law forced deference to Mormon claims about ancient Hebrews in America, which is what Mormons claim, the outcry would be deafening. NAGPRA's precedent is no less egregious. And yeah, that they have legally mandated that scientists must defer to Native Americans when there's a disagreement. They must have Native American religious leaders who practice Native American religions on their councils. This is mandated by federal law, a blatant disregard for the First Amendment. Imagine if this was Mormons, because Mormons do claim American history. A lot of people don't know this, but Mormons believe that ancient Hebrews came to America 2,000 years ago. And that's widely dismissed and regarded as nonsense by archaeologists, and probably rightfully so. But imagine if a law was written that made it so that archaeologists had to listen to Mormons and they had to publish what Mormons say and they had to agree with Mormons even when the science disagreed with them. That is what NAGPRA has done for Native Americans. Absolute insanity. The DOI's reinterpretation also bypasses Congress, as agencies rewrite laws meant for legislators. Congress is the only one supposed to be writing law, but here is NAGPRA and the DOI doing it. The 1984 Chevron versus EPA decision, overturned in 2024, offers grounds to challenge these rules. A new DOI secretary like Doug Burgum confirmed in 2025 could rescind them, but legal fixes won't cure archaeology's cultural disease. So again, NAGPRA was written in 1990. This reinterpretation by the DOI has effectively completely transformed and rewritten this law, which the DOI has no grounds to do. They cannot write law, only Congress can. Global crisis, history under siege. This isn't just America's problem. Australia's Mungo Man, an invaluable 40,000-year-old skeleton crucial to migration studies, was reburied in 2017, a critical loss to science. Globally, repatriation buries evidence under cultural demands. Ideological distortions like claims of Black Norwegians or a 2023 article asserting the science is settled, sex is non-binary, a direct rebuttal to Weiss's evidence-based paper on binary sex and skeletal remains, warp archaeology worldwide. America may lead this insanity, but the world is close behind, demanding resistance to save our shared heritage. Again, NAGPRA only applies to North America, specifically the United States of America, but the extreme culture of archaeology that is the driving force behind NAGPRA, that is spreading throughout the world. Canada might be even worse than us. Australia is hot on our heels, and it's rapidly spreading to the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. This is not just an American issue. History is under threat globally. The stakes, a devastating information purge. The result is a catastrophic blackout of knowledge. Nearly every Native American gallery in America's museums are closed or covered. Online images are gone. Books are pulled. Research is burned. In 2024, over 10,300 ancestors were repatriated. A win for tribes, a loss for study. Burned x-rays, banned textbook drawings, and locked away collections herald a future where history bends to ideology, not evidence. Scientists face crippling restrictions, and institutions bear unfunded compliance costs. This isn't just a public loss, it's a scientific apocalypse. I could expand on every single one of those points, but I think that last sentence summed it up pretty good. This isn't just a public loss, it is a scientific apocalypse. And I truly mean that. Solutions. Rage to save history. This crisis demands action. Legal challenges using the Chevron overturn could gut NAGPRA's reinterpretation, and a new DOI secretary might roll back the rules. But archaeology's fanaticism needs a cultural reckoning. Public rage. Archaeologists hypersensitive to opinion will buckle under pressure. The public must wake to this destruction and demand accountability. Media, academic pushback, and grassroots campaign can amplify voices like Weiss's, who value both indigenous rights and science. Collaborative models like the Chimene, I don't know how to say that, diet studies prove balance is possible. Globally, similar fury can counter reburial trends. Time is critical. Some losses, like burned x-rays, are gone forever, but we can save what remains and return it to public view. Those burned x-rays, by the way, the only reason that Weiss knew about it, that I know about it, that anyone knows about it, is because the tribe wanted to make a spectacle out of it. The tribe went, look, we've regained control over our ancestors. Not only have we taken the bodies back and reburied them, we've taken them from scientific study, but all of the scientific study that was already done on them, we've reclaimed it and we're going to burn it. We're going to destroy it. So that was, announced publicly. But as the video that I talked about earlier describes, and as, some other sources describe, this is all being done in secret. None of this is reported to the public. None of this is reported or recorded in any way. The destruction of this research, the destruction of these artifacts and these remains, it is happening in secret, and it's not even recorded internally. Okay, so I just want to stress that, like, every single reference you see of something like this happen, there is an untold amount that is happening behind the scenes that is entirely unreported. Conclusion. NAGPRA's 2024 reinterpretation, propelled by archaeology's suicidal ideology, is annihilating Native American history and strangling science. From Biden's decrees to global reburials, this plague spans governments and continents. Elizabeth Weiss fights alone, but she needs an army. Legal reforms are a start, but only public outrage can stop these archaeologists from erasing our past. Museums are dark, knowledge is ash, evidence is buried. Rise up now, or history is lost forever. So, yeah. What do you guys think? Hopefully I wrote a decent article. I don't know what else to say at this point. I've been trying to spread this message for almost a year. I've gotten very little with it. I've made very little progress. Very few people have become aware of this since I started. And it really is a desperate situation. So much has gone already. Tens of thousands of images online just wiped out overnight, January 12th. Every museum across America shut its Native American gallery down January 12th. Tarps were thrown over exhibits because they were illegal. And this is all what's happening public. The public part is just the tip of the iceberg. So much is being lost. The rate of loss is increasing. If we do not stop this very, very soon, our history will be gone, and it'll be gone forever. The work of 100+ years of archaeology will disappear forever. I need help sharing this. I think I'm going to mass tag people on Twitter, which I know is, not a great thing to do, but I'm desperate. The word needs to get out about this. I would like to go onto other podcasts and talk about this. I would like, even if you don't want me to be on your podcast, I will privately tutor you so you can present this on your own podcast. You don't even have to give me credit. Anything to get this message out. It's so bad. It's so severe. It's so urgent. And, like I said in the beginning, it took me months. It literally took me months of actively researching this stuff to accept that what I was seeing was truly happening, because it is so secretive. So you get little tidbits, you get little anecdotes here, you get little examples of the x-rays being burned, and so and then you get the contradictory statements. NAGPRA itself doesn't outlaw any of this explicitly. There's nothing in there about removing images. You get archaeologists who will tell you that this is not true. They would never erase history. They would never destroy history. This isn't happening. But then you listen to what else they're saying, and they're proudly boasting about how they're returning objects, not because of any reason, but just because a tribe requested them. And they're going, what else can we return for you? You want your literal shit back? Let us give you your literal shit back, your sacred shit. So, I get that it's so radical and it's so underreported that when you try and present this to people, the default reaction is to just go, no, that's not happening. And the average person isn't going to do months of research like I did to confirm that it actually is happening. So I don't know how to break that barrier and get people to actually understand what's going on, because I know that if people did understand what's going on, they would care. I look at the outrage over Göbekli Tepe, and I'm not even trying to say that that was unreasonable in any way. I think that was an appropriate response. I think that was a good response, and it was an effective response. I've got a hair tickle in my nose. But what's happening with NAGPRA is 1,000 times worse. It's 1,000 times worse than Göbekli Tepe. And it gets 1,000 times less attention, right? I know people care about the destruction of history because of the reaction to Göbekli Tepe. I just need to figure out how to get people to wake up to what's happening, because I know they would care if they knew. So please help me spread this. Please help. I need help. I really need help. I'm going to drop a link in chat. So if anyone wants to call in, man, something is tickling the hell out of my nose right now. If you guys want an after show, let me know. I'm happy to do an after show. I have no content prepared. It would just be a chill sesh. You'd be welcome to call in and talk about anything. Oh my gosh, what is going on with my nose? I can complain about some things, nothing too terribly interesting, but if you want an after show, I'm happy to do one. Otherwise, I'll give like 3 minutes for people to call in. And once this stream hits the 45-minute mark, if no one's calling in, that'll be the stream. And something is on my face. Okay. Think I got it. I'll read through the chat while I wait for a call, and then that'll be it. Cheddarman. Yeah, Cheddarman, I think, is who I was mixing it up with. Yeah. And yes, the same is happening in Australia. It's happening all around the world. Like Canada, Australia, and America are probably the worst right now, but this is spreading around the world. And again, the momentum is increasing. It's accelerating. So as bad as it is now, tomorrow it will be worse. And the next day it'll be even worse than the amount it was worse tomorrow, if that makes sense. So I don't know what is going on with my nose, but I just feel like there's just hairs all over it tickling me for whatever reason. It's really annoying. Yes, that's been recommended to me before. I will reach out to them immediately tonight. Yep. And it's not just, it's all over. Like it's becoming a game, the game where you were like, you could take literally any word out of the dictionary and then ask, is it racist? And you would find articles about that thing being racist. Is hiking racist? Here's 12 articles about how hiking is racist. That's how the Black indigenous people is happening now with European countries. Go to any European country and say, were the original people Black? And you'll get a dozen articles about how they were. So Rubate is calling in. Rubate, how's it going? I'm starting to wonder if the issue's on my end, because your audio sounds very choppy like Mr. Cheese does. Yeah, I cannot hear you. I'm sorry. If you're trying to talk now, it's just actual silence. I was hearing really, really choppy audio initially. Now I hear nothing. Choppy audio was back for a second.
Can you hear me now?
No. I mean, I can, but not well.
I'll try again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. If anyone else could call in actually, because that's the same issue that Michael G was having. So if you could call in just to test the audio, because if it happens to 3 people, that's obviously an issue on my end, and I'll have to figure that out. That's no bueno. If anyone else could call in just to say, like, just let me hear your audio to see if it works, I would appreciate it. Adding you again just to see, Rue, if you might have figured anything out, but it seems like we're not going to be able to talk today. Yeah, you sound like a robot. I don't even know what you just said.
That's why I heard it.
All right. Sorry, Rube. But yeah, I'm starting to think that the issue is on my end. So no one else is calling in. And I'm sorry, Rube, we can't chat. But no one asked for an after episode. So I think that's it for me today. And I will catch you guys hopefully next week. I was talking to someone about coming on to talk about NAGPRA. I think I'll have them next month, hopefully. So I am making, I guess, a tiny bit of progress, but it's been a struggle, and I could really, really use some help getting this message out. So peace out, fellas. I'll catch you later.